Welcome to the Nerdist Podcast number 799. This episode's Patrick Stewart. We're going to talk about that in a second, but Katie's got some Nerdist Community corkboard business.
Yeah, so Chris Mancini, who is from Comedy Film Nerds, and he is awesome. He has a Kickstarter out for a new graphic novel that he is trying to write. It's called Long Ago and Far Away, and it sounds really cool. It sounds like something that is completely up the alley of all of our listeners. And if you know Chris, he's great. So you can find it on Kickstarter.com and searching Long Ago and Far Away. And also, we have a new podcast, part of Nerdist Sports. It's called Puck Soup. It's with Greg Wyshynski and Dave Lozo, and it's all NHL-based, but they'll also be talking to people about just other sports and pop culture and whatnot.
So it's not about the cast member from Real World San Francisco who wrote
nice puck reference.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Oh, man. We are all in a similar age
I
group.
thought he was hot for some reason. Why did I think that?
Because he was a bad boy.
Was he hot?
Yeah.
Maybe he was hot. I'm going to go back and look at pictures of him.
Spiky
later.
hair.
Man, if you want to feel real old, reference The Real World to young open micers.
Oh, my God.
Because you get just a blank look at this point.
I know. Oh, believe me.
It makes me real upset.
Yeah, there are things that make me feel like I am fucking K-Earth 101 living in a One Direction universe. Like, it's just not a...
You mean the fact that they play Depeche Mode and other bands you like on K-Earth 101?
Depeche Mode, they play fucking Nirvana on K-Earth 101.
20 years.
Yeah.
It's a
Nirvana's
horrifying thing.
all over the oldies.
They became
stations
a classic
now.
rock
And
band.
Foo
They are
Fighters.
classic rock because I mean, if you think about it, in the 80s, in 1986, if they played music from 1961, that would have been like, that would have felt like generations ago. Yeah, so that's all it is. Anyway, time is a forward-moving train, and we can never stop it.
I was promised it was a flat circle, but we just keep moving forward.
No, Kyle, the Earth is flat.
Oh, you're one of those now. I see how it is,
Not
Flatty.
really. I'm just making
Flatty
funnies.
O'Brien.
What do you got there?
Okay, I got Tishka Valadina made a website called Behind the Cartoons, or Beyond the Cartoons, .com. And it is all about looking at the people who make cartoons. Sitting in this room, Chris, you seem to be a bit of an animation buff. What with your Ren and Stimpy and original Warner Brothers art on the wall here.
Yeah, and I also have some original John Kay drawings and some original. Yeah,
This website is real cool and ate up part of my afternoon yesterday when I was supposed to be working because it's full of amazing interviews with not just voice actors but animators, like timing people, like all the people who go into making cartoons done. Like, and
I'm
really
so
great
excited about
interviews.
this. Did I tell you? I think I told you this. I stood in line at WonderCon a few years ago to get Ralph Bakshi to sign an original.
And I'm
Wizard,
jealous.
so.
I feel like you know what a crazy Ralph Bakshi fan I is, and anytime you can bring this up, you throw it at me because I'm so jealous.
I do. I like to throw it right at your face.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are animation buffs, you should watch the Mighty Mouse that Bakshi did, where
yeah.
John Kay was one of the directors.
This is actually crossing over as part of the drinking game on my podcast. This is rad, where it's take a drink every time Kyle references Ralph Bakshi or the New Adventures of Mighty Mouse.
Can I tell you something? So I've been playing Animal Crossing, and you can create a mule character. Basically, when you start getting too much stuff, you can create a second character to start holding all of your stuff.
Sweet.
And so I created this little girl with spiky hair, and I named her Bakshi.
Ah, nice.
Yep.
Very cool.
So is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think
named
it's cool. So, I mean, that's a...
Katie clutched her chest.
Katie is going to beat you up and take your lunch money, but I'm going to push up my glasses and say, I think that's cool.
This episode is Patrick Stewart, and he just couldn't be a better human being.
He's the best man.
This was a wonderful chat, which we're going to get into in a second, but I want to tell you, this is the third time he's been on, too. This movie is called Green Room that he's promoting.
It sure is.
Which opens coastally on the 15th of April, and opens nationwide on the 29th.
Guys, go see it.
It's a super fucked up movie.
It is Kyle Clark's #1 movie of the year thus far. It's incredible. It's brutal. There's nothing else like it that exists.
It's great. So it's super intense. And it's essential. Well, we talk about it in the podcast, but it's a band plays gig that doesn't go well. Things go sideways, and shit goes down in a super fucked way. It's great.
So tense. It's so fucking good.
Yeah. So highly recommend it. It's called Green Room. Blunt Talk is Patrick's show that he has
On
right
Stars.
now, and he tells us a lot about other stuff that he's working on the podcast. So I'm going to shut up now so Katie can start this. Katie, roll the thing for episode number 799 of the Nerdist Podcast. Sir Patrick Stewart.
Now entering Nerdist.com.
We are, yes. It's a very full day. I'm in the middle of shooting the last couple of episodes of my second season of my series. So they very generously somehow managed to... Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Welcome back.
Thank you. We're happy to be here.
It's good to see you. Boy, this is our new podcast room.
Yes?
It's brand new. I mean, like, brand new. You're like the second person.
Are we launching it? Oh, I'm the... Oh,
yeah.
Not the first person.
No.
You might have lied and said I was the first person.
I could have done that. A guy from Game of Thrones beat you yesterday, but...
Really?
But fuck him, you're here, and let's just say that officially you're first.
Game of Thrones doesn't count.
It doesn't count. It doesn't count.
It's too successful.
It's far too successful.
It's only the most successful show in the world.
I mean, it's one of them. It's one of them.
I'm told it is. I mean, that it's...
Bigger than Walking Dead?
Yeah, I think
Oh, yeah. Fuck Game of Thrones. Yeah. I used to like it till just now. There is kind of a Game of Thrones.
Top Gear might be the only show bigger than it internationally.
Top Gear, really?
Yeah, Top Gear is like 800 million people watch that show.
What do you watch? What do you watch?
Very little.
Really?
Yes. I watch a lot of sport. My day was ruined yesterday after a brilliant day. We were filming out at Malibu on the beach, then up in the mountains, and I got to wear Arab uniform and drag and got to wear wetsuits and all this, all in the space of one day. But my plan was a long drive home, and then I would sit down with a glass of wine or two. And I had a soccer match recorded that had played earlier in the day in the UK, a very important soccer match.
What happened?
No service. No fucking service.
Oh, no. Brutal.
I tried everything I knew, and it's astonishing. I have more IT disasters in Los Angeles than anywhere else. I mean, a lot of the time my cell phone doesn't work or there's no service. Our Wi-Fi in the house doesn't work or the studio. And, this is the heartland of the entertainment business. They ought to get their act together.
You're knighted, and you're telling me that the Crown doesn't provide some sort of direct royal access to soccer matches and cricket games?
Well, they probably do provide a service, but it's more likely to be horse racing or dog shows.
It's just dressage.
Or gardening.
Or whatever.
An evening of dressage would be not my ideal way of spending
time. And then you turn on, it's corgis again. We're going to watch the corgis.
But you would think, wouldn't you? I mean, I did expect that when the knighthood came along that there would be bonuses, perks.
You think they tap you on the shoulder and say, guess what?
Yeah.
Did anything come with it?
A plaque?
Oh, a beautiful ribbon with a medal on it. Yes.
But not like you can beat anyone up in public and it's okay kind of a thing?
No, nothing, despite the fact that there is a sword involved in the process. And it's still to the very day, I don't know where that sword came from. There were two of us being knighted on that day, and we were the first up. They do it in order of precedence.
Okay.
There were 100 awards being given that day, and Her Majesty was on her feet for over an hour, 86 years old,
Wow.
spoke to every single person. A brief conversation, I'm not allowed to tell you because you do not repeat royal conversations.
Right. Do you like corgis?
They're off the record. But I didn't see the man before me going through the process. So we had a rehearsal earlier. You are actually rehearsed to say exactly what you do, which involved walking backwards at some point.
Okay.
There was Her Majesty. I was now kneeling down on a very, very a sensible piece of furniture. It's a stool, but it has a handrail on the side,
very
so
sensible.
that you can lever yourself up and down. If you're very old, as I am, then that's a useful addition. And she was standing in front of me and smiling sweetly, and then all of a sudden she had this damned sword in her hand, and I don't know where it came from. But because I had a closer view of what was going on than anyone else, I did see that in the process, because she touches the right shoulder first, that here was the sword in her hand. I'm sorry, listeners, you can't see what I'm doing, but my palm is turned down.
Yes.
She touched one shoulder with that. Then as it sword went over my head, she turned her wrist so that the other side touched the other shoulder. An interesting but entirely boring subject to talk about.
No, it's fascinating. Because I like to think that
Well, I think all the listeners that have been knighted have tuned out, but
Yeah.
everyone else.
finally something for me.
Yeah, well, that would be Sir Ben Kingsley, Sir Ian McKellen, because they were all listening.
Well, we've had them on the show.
Yeah, of course you have, yeah. Did they talk about their knighthoods?
Yes, Ian McKellen said the Queen said to him, "Are you a goer? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge."
She did not. She did not. Ian is such a fantasist.
I made that up. He didn't say that at all. I noticed by the parasol that you just posted on your Twitter account yesterday or the day before, you are deep in season 2 of Blunt Talk.
Almost concluded. We have. I have 5 more shooting days, and we are done with season 2. It's
my God.
unbelievable how fast that it has gone. And if I were to tell you that yesterday when we were shooting, as I think I just mentioned, I wore 5 radically different costumes at different times during the day, you will appreciate that we were having some fun.
That's great. It's nice that you have a job that's really fun. That's just takes a little bit of time, and then you're done.
Oh, well, a little bit of time. I'm sorry.
Like a week. What does it take to shoot a season? Like a week?
To shoot a season,
I'm kidding.
With 12 to 14 weeks we do. And our episodes are only half an hour long, so we shoot every 14 days. We shoot 2 episodes.
Yeah. I mean, were you mentally prepared to play Walter for this long? I mean, when you first started, it just seems weird when you start a show and you think, well, I don't know if this is going to go or not, and then all of a sudden you find yourself 2 or 3 seasons deep. Now you're that guy.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we hoped that it would be like that, and we've now done 2 seasons. I think, in a way, I've been preparing all my life to play Walter Blunt. Not in lifestyle, mind you, because his is so very modest and boring compared to mine.
Yes.
But I started, this is not something that is generally well known, but my very first job on leaving school was working on a newspaper. I was a cub reporter.
Really?
On my local paper.
What were you covering?
Births, deaths, marriages, essentially. They wouldn't let me. If anything important happened, we each had our little district, and which included where I lived, my home. And I got to do all the boring stuff. But if anything exciting happened there, one of the senior reporters would immediately swoop into my territory and take over. And I was dishonest too. I made things up.
What?
And, yeah.
You made up death announcements?
No, but I'll tell you about death. I mean, it was the society that I grew up in, which was a working class, blue collar society. People who had lived generations in this same little part of the north of England. And it was customary when there was a death in a family that somebody called to pay their respects, or in my case, a journalist who showed up to ask a few delicate questions about the deceased that the wife or husband or parent or whoever would say to me, and I will attempt to do the accent of my youth. They'd say, E, would you like to have a look at him, love? he looks real grand. And so, very well, yes. Oh, he does. How lovely. Well, there was one day when I saw 3 corpses in a morning. And I went back to the newspaper office and the reporter's room, and the sub-editor said to me, "What's wrong, Patrick? You seem a bit down." And I said, "Damn it, yes. This job, it's getting me down. I actually had to stand over 3 coffins." He said, "Oh, you don't have to do that, You're not expected." I said, "But they ask, would you?" And he said, "No, here's what you say." And we all say the same thing. I've recently had a death in my own family, and I think it might be a little upsetting if I were to see another. Would you mind if I didn't? So After that, that's what I did.
That's it.
No more corpses.
Well, hopefully all those people didn't talk and
Word
discover
travels
that
fast.
a person died in your family every week for like 2 years.
That Stewart boy is real suspicious.
Yeah.
There's a lot of deaths in his family.
The lying part was another thing, and it was because by the time I was 15, I was heavily involved with amateur theatricals. The part of England I come from, it was not thought grotesque or unusual or fancy or show-off to be a performer. Mm-hmm. Everybody sang, recited, danced, were in plays, in bands, in choirs. I was in a choir as well as doing amateur acting. Nobody thought that you were different or weird or a show-off. And I was working with 5 different amateur companies at the same time. So rehearsals were complicated because we can only rehearse in the evening when you're an amateur group. And journalists work in the evening. They have to attend council meetings and so forth. All kinds of things come up. So when that happened and it clashed with a rehearsal, I would, first of all, try to get somebody to cover for me, to do the job instead of me. Then I would arrange to have somebody who was there make notes for me. Mm-hmm. Or I would have somebody on the end of the telephone I could talk to afterwards. Or I made it up. Well, that didn't go on for too long because I got found out.
They did, of course.
And I got found out in the following way. One night there was it was a small town, just a population of 11,000, but we had a council, town council, and I was to attend one of the meetings of the town council, but I had a rehearsal, so I didn't go. And I got somebody else to cover for me. And as it happened, there was the biggest fire broke out in the history of my town in a building almost next door to the council offices where the meeting was happening. This broke, and immediately the editor for the day said, "Oh, well, we don't have to worry. Patrick is right there, right on the spot. He'll be covering it. All right, we're fine." Not true. I was elsewhere. And when I was asked, "So what about the fire?" Fire? What fire? And I was found out, and I was hauled in front of the editor, owner editor of the newspaper, and given an option, which was either you give up this stupid amateur theatricals and you become what you were employed to be, a full-time journalist, or you better get off this newspaper. And I went upstairs to the reporter's room and packed up my typewriter, even though my best friend on the paper was saying, don't do this, no. He didn't really mean it. No, you just don't go. You'll never get another job. I had no education. Wow. I went to a school that was not academic or scholarly. I was very lucky to get the job. And he was right. I would never get another job like that. But something had happened to me in his office, and I went home, and my mother saying, "You're back early," and I said, "Yes, I've left. I've given up the job." And she said, "Oh, love, what are you going to do?" And I said, "I'm going to be an actor."
And was she cool with that?
Totally cool. Yes,
that's fantastic.
Both my parents were. They were amazing. What I didn't know at the time, and it was several years, perhaps 5 years later, that I found out that I was not the first actor in my family, that my father's father had been an actor, as well as being the black sheep of the family, which is why I didn't know. He was never talked about. He had deserted his wife, my father's mother, and 4 children, and gone off to be an actor somewhere. And
it's a little more intense than leaving a newspaper.
Much more intense.
Much more intense. Did you know him? You didn't know him at all?
No, it's possible, because he escaped to the United States, as many did. And others who didn't want to come to the United States came as well. But William Stewart came here, we know that for certain, and doing the calculations, it is very probable that William Stewart was living and working in the United States the first time I came here, my grandfather. But I never met him. Of course, I would have loved to have done. I'll tell you a little story about him.
Please.
All this came out when I was going on a long overseas tour, a 15-month tour with the Old Vic, and the company led by Vivien Leigh, beautiful and brilliant actress. And my grandmother was very old, so I made a serious journey to spend some time with her, because I thought I might not see her again. And that was when I learned all this about my grandfather, about her ex-husband. And one of the things that happened, she said, "Shall I tell you about the last time we ever heard from him?" I said, "Yes, please." Well, he was appearing on stage at a theatre at the Elephant and Castle in South London, a theatre that was bombed during the war and doesn't exist anymore. And a complaint had been made to the police that her family had been deserted. This was an offence in those days. Oh. And because he had to pay maintenance, and he was paying no maintenance. So they found him, and they went to the stage door, and they found this guy in the wings waiting to make an entrance in a play that he was in, and two policemen. And he said to them, "Look, of course I'll come with you. Yeah, this is awful. This is terrible. But just let me finish this one scene I've got in the play, and then we can go. Otherwise, the whole evening will be ruined for the audience." So they agreed to it. He went on. He played the scene, and he exited the other side, and was never seen again. Listeners,
I'm not used to the new dynamics of the room.
He hit his head on the wall.
I leaned back. I'm not used to having a wall right here.
That was something we're going to have to look out for in the future.
Yeah, it is. Well, not you. You guys are on the fine side of it. That is incredible. And just that didn't come back to get paid or anything. Or nothing.
Left. I mean, he knew that the chips were down. He was in trouble. And he came to the United States. But what he did here, we don't know. I know that one of his sons also came to the United States and was certainly living in Detroit the first time I came here. In fact, I worked in Detroit in 1969. And it's very possible my uncle, was also called William, was living in Detroit at the same time.
So there's a whole other line of Stewarts, maybe, that...
They had no children. My uncle never had children. He had a business. All this found out when I did a television show in England called Who Do You Think You Are? Wonderful show. And I found this out then, that there was an American. He became a citizen, which I have not.
Still?
No, after all these years and years and years. And the most frustrating part for me, I could become a dual citizen.
Sure.
There's no problem about that. I could retain my British passport. But I do have a very strong feeling about being British.
Of course.
And I feel that if I had a secondary citizenship, not as though I was British born to, while my parents were in America or anything like that. Yeah. I chose to take on a dual citizenship. So I've never done it. I am a resident alien.
Welcome.
That usually gets a laugh, but this time it didn't, because obviously you don't know what I'm referring to.
I was about to make a Rigel 7 joke or something.
Okay,
so
that would have been acceptable.
Matt can tell you everything on the deck of the NCC 1701D. Everything he can tell you.
Which deck?
He can tell you every deck.
God, was that the number of my ship?
Was that the number of your ship?
Yeah. 1701D. Yeah, you lost it in 7.
Really?
7 generation.
Well, you may be interested to hear that I am selling my script archive. It's being auctioned this summer.
Frakes just did that.
Frakes just did it, yeah.
The sound you just heard was Matt popping a boner?
No, it was me thinking, okay, if I could pay for the IVF for my wife or scripts.
Honey, these scripts will be like our baby.
It's a real toss-up.
They'll tell better stories.
Can I just...
How are you selling this archive, and what are the details of that?
Well, there will be, I think, a press release of some kind, so I shouldn't say too much. But
no, let it be now.
There were 178 episodes of Star Trek, The Next Generation.
He's right.
And but 178 scripts doesn't begin to touch it, because there were many drafts of each script, and largely, I have the drafts as well.
Oh, wow.
And I have all the pages, the different colored pages that come out during production. And I saved the call sheets as well.
Oh, my God.
So each episode is a contained little history of that episode. The drafts, the rewrites, the call sheets, and so forth. My only question was, should I sell this script by script, one at a time? Let people choose what script they'd like to own. Or, as I believe some of my colleagues have done, page by page. But I have been advised, no, there are serious collectors out there who would want the whole thing.
What episode would you want,
They
Matt?
could pony
Yeah,
up
what
for.
episode would you want? Maybe I've got a duplicate that I could...
Oh, my God.
I will buy it for you. I will buy it for you.
I think... I see now. You got to think of who's
Naked Now.
So if it's,
You're thinking Naked Now, aren't you?
no one is thinking that, Patrick. No one is thinking Naked Now. Terrible retread.
Okay,
of a
I'll
original
help
series.
you out. What about
Family would be great.
Family, yeah,
Family
which
would be
I had in my
fantastic.
hands this morning. The whole pile of family
Wow.
scripts. Inner Light.
Timescape, Inner Light. Oh,
Oh,
God. Inner
everyone
Light.
says,
So good.
Inner
so
Light.
good. So good. They got a Peabody for that.
Well, watch this space because I think it's in June, the auction.
I will watch it. Oh my
What's the
God.
one where Beverly Crusher hooks up with a ghost on that?
I thought you were
Oh,
going to
that's
say
Sub
I thought you were
Rosa.
Sub
gonna
Rosa.
Sub Rosa.
No one wants Sub Rosa.
What was the one you're going to say?
I don't know what it was
What was the
called.
one you-
I thought you were going to say when Beverly Crusher hooks up with a goat. I thought you were going to say.
Yeah, what
No,
episode was that?
Whoa,
more
whoa, whoa.
ridiculous. It's a ghost.
It's a ghost.
the ghost alien.
There's a goat planet. You guys go down. And there's a goat.
The
there's a
planet
goat
was
planet.
weird. They go to too because the planet was like an Irish colony.
Oh, yes, I remember those. I do indeed remember them very well. There was a wonderful English actor, Barry. Oh, may he rest in peace because he's gone. And he played the leader of this alien race. But they all spoke like tinkers.
Oh God, they really
With
went
bottles
for it.
of Guinness in their pockets. It may not have been Star Trek The Next Generation's greatest moment.
I mean, the news of this auction is epic. I think.
Excuse me, I'm so sorry. Barry Ingham.
Barry Ingham.
Barry Ingham was the name of the actor. May he rest in peace.
That is fantastic.
Timescape.
Sorry, I interrupted
That's the one
you.
I would
No,
want.
It could be.
You want Timescape?
Timescape, I would want.
Yeah,
very
I saw
much.
that yesterday.
If you have the if you have the
saw that
Timescape
yesterday?
collection, I'd buy it for Matt as a present because he and his wife are trying to conceive a child through science at the moment. So as a celebration of new life, I would get you the Timescape.
We want to make a little Wesley. You know, we're just like
I texted Wesley. I texted Will
Wesley,
to see
we're
if he
calling
would. He was working today, and he said he was very sorry he couldn't be here. But I wanted to have him. I wanted to have him here and sit in.
That would have been lovely.
The last time I tried
He's
the same,
matured, hasn't
a
he?
bit.
very much so.
Yeah.
He has a beard now.
But I do remember the last time.
That's not necessarily a sign of maturity.
Why?
As you can see here. But I think the last time you were here, the same thing happened. He was out of town, and I go, "Oh, I tried to get Will Wheaton to come on the podcast, and he had to work." And you said something like, "Well, fuck him." Or something like that.
That sounds about right.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
You also said one of my favorite things ever, which didn't make the podcast because the mic didn't pick it up. But we took a picture where I had this dumb derby and a mustache. And I told you that when Ian McKellen was on, I was going to do this thing where I took a picture with him with that. And then when he showed up, I was like, he's a little more serious than I expected, so I'm not going to do this. And I showed it to you, and when I put the mustache on, you go, "You look like fucking Hitler." And the microphone didn't pick it up, but it was it was one of my favorite things. It was one of my favorite jokes.
Well, you remember it, and that makes me all warm and fuzzy inside.
I'm glad. For a second, I thought you were going to go, "You do look like fucking Hitler." No, I don't.
What else do you got in the archives you might be selling besides scripts? Do you have anything else?
Yeah, there are going to be some other interesting and, as they say in the art world, important pieces.
I almost the computer that you had on your desk in Insurrection was up on eBay for a little while, and I almost bought it.
Really?
Someone got it.
Yeah, I couldn't bring myself to fork over
It
them.
wasn't a real computer.
No, of course
you know.
not. Of course not.
I mean, I have been asked, you wouldn't believe how many times, what was it like traveling in the Enterprise? And I'd say, actually, what was involved was that you walked onto stage 9 at Paramount Pictures. That's all that happened. That thing never went anywhere at all. It was just all make-believe.
Just sets. Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you know, when you've had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff say, "Captain, may I sit in your chair?"
You have to.
Or, you know, secretaries of state, or indeed one president
Wow.
asked, "May I sit in the chair?"
Did you say yes?
Of course.
Of course.
Of course, yes, with great respect. And
after all this, I'm surprised that someone didn't just say to you, like, have a citizenship. Here you go.
you know,
It's not that he would
you
want
would have
it.
thought, wouldn't
Yeah.
you know, that Ronnie, because I was allowed to call him Ronnie, would have said, "Hey, Pat." you know.
Reagan asked to sit in the chair?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
crazy. Well, to take us off, here we fire the phasers. Is that a good Reagan impersonation?
No.
Well, oh, I'm sorry for this. Well, no, I guess that's
Yeah,
not it either.
you're not hitting
That
it.
is not the president I would have expected to want to sit in the captain's
He
chair.
was lovely. He was,
But of course, he was an actor.
No, but he was. You know, you see, there you go. People have the impression that we're acting all the time. That you don't get the real thing. We actually are. Acting. This is not me.
Are you serious? Are you a hologram?
This is a version of me.
This is a version of you.
Just for your show.
I appreciate that.
You know, I go on another show. I'm a different person.
Totally different.
You know, Conan asks me questions. I don't behave like this. I kiss Conan whenever
did?
I possibly can. I did, yeah, on the mouth.
Soft kisser?
Extended. I'm right, aren't I? Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Conan's got those thin Irish lips, though. You know.
He's good. He's
He
good,
was up for it. I have great respect for
I
him.
love Conan.
You still get booty texts from Conan. Hey, what's up? You up? Hey, Patrick Stewart, you up? We did. I almost kissed Conan. We had a. We were eating pasta or something on the show, and so I took the other end of the pasta, Lady and the Tramp style, but it broke. Right before we could get. Yeah,
Meaningful, though.
very meaningful. Yeah, it was.
Those
I could
things
see
are not
the
accidents.
I could see the emotion in his eyes. It felt really good. I hope we get information about this auction very soon. Did you sneak away with some stuff from?
Did you take a uniform?
One item I did, yeah. And it was largely done as a protest. Because, and actually Conan also figures in this little anecdote too. Others just took things, including uniforms. And I mentioned no names at all.
Sure, Will.
No, I thought that's
Sorry.
yeah. Lamar!
Are you okay? You're joking.
No. I don't think those guys did. They wouldn't. But so what I did was I went to the production office and I spoke to our line producer, who's the person in charge of the budgeting and so forth. And I said, "Look, I would like to buy one of my uniforms. Now, I've been over to the wardrobe department, and they have told me what it cost to make each uniform, and that my uniform is no different from the others. I'd like to buy one." They said, "Oh, well, we'll have to take that higher up. We'll talk about that." The answer came back, "No,
What?
no, you can't have one." Fuck them, I thought. Others have taken. So I didn't take one. But I did, on the very last day we worked, I did take my communicator off because it was just stuck on with Velcro,
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh,
Is that
man.
it?
No.
Space Velcro.
What?
Space Velcro. It was all space Velcro.
Yeah.
Advanced Starfleet
Yeah.
Velcro.
Yeah.
24th century Velcro.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
we
God.
have to be very careful around Matt.
Very different.
Matt's special.
That's very different. Okay, that's fine.
And I have it still. I know where it is, but it is promised. I'm afraid. I'm sorry to say.
You know what?
It won't be part. Actually, it might. But I did promise it to the Archbishop of York.
Well, the Archbishop of York has some cash. He can pony up.
And not
He's just gonna give it to
necessarily.
him, right?
No, that's not necessary. I don't think ministers of the Church of England are that well paid. I mean, even if you're Archbishop, he's number 2 in the Anglican hierarchy.
Number 2 seems like
Yeah.
he's probably getting a little bit of pay.
But I went over. I took my American wife to York to see the city because it's a great medieval city and a great medieval minster. And the chap who was taking us round said, the Archbishop knows that you're in town, and he wondered if you'd like to go over to the palace and have tea with him. And I said, absolutely. This is Johnson Umu, who's a wonderful man. And we went over. Well, it didn't take long before he was saying, and in episode In a Light, and I thought, along with, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and presidents and so forth and secretaries of state, there's now an Archbishop of York who is a Trekkie.
That's not bad for a man who started out making up stories on his newspaper.
It's ending at the moment happily.
Good.
It's so funny that they wouldn't give you a uniform. They were so cheap with those uniforms.
Oh, I didn't finish the story, the Conan part of the story. God, I hope it was Conan, otherwise I'll be in deep shit. I was on his show, and he said, so, just as you asked, so you must have all kinds of memorabilia, captain's uniform and the 4 pips and a phaser. And I said, no, I have nothing. I didn't tell them about the communicator. I have nothing. And he said, what? So I told them I'd offered to buy, and they wouldn't let me. And he said, that's a disgrace. That's shocking. 18 months or so pass, and another project is in the wind, and I go on the show again. And he said, oh, by the way, we got something for you. And out comes one of his assistants carrying my uniform, my captain's uniform on a coat hanger, and said, it's yours. And I said, how? He said, we called them up and we shamed them into giving you one.
So it was just sitting in a room. It was just sitting in the room like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Well, they have all the archives.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They have everything. And they are selling stuff off.
Yeah.
Paramount had a big sale a few years ago, which included a lot of Star Trek memorabilia. I am told that the model, which was bigger than this room, that does the flybys, you know what I'm talking
ILM
about?
model, yeah.
Yeah. Was actually bought by Bill Gates.
Oh, that's not surprising.
I wonder what he paid for it.
Oh.
Not enough.
Do you think do you think that's north of $1 million? Is that seven figures?
I think it went for 600,000, something like that.
Oh my god, it's incredible.
Isn't it incredible?
I think you could look it up, but the flute from Inner Light that sold. It was the pre-auction estimate was like $1,200 to $2,500.
Can I tell you a little anecdote about the flute? This
Please.
is the bad side of me. I got somebody said to me, I have a friend, he bought the flute from Inner Light at an auction, and he spent a huge amount of money on this. And it comes in a little presentation box and all of that. I was working on Broadway, and he was coming to see the play. Could he come backstage? And would you mind signing the box with the flute? And I said, no, that's great. I might even, give him a note to do, because he'd actually played. Oh, no, it didn't. No, the one that I played, which I did play, was real. That one didn't play. So he gives me this thing, and as I'm signing it, I said, by the way, don't you, there are 4 others of these.
Did you happen to... You should have had someone take a picture the moment you said that just to capture his expression. How long did you let him go?
Oh, not long.
That's amazing.
That's so funny. It's funny.
It's. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
It's like I bought the Mona Lisa. Oh, and by the way, there are several others.
Oh no, you bought the 4th one. There's some other really great ones.
Well, by the 4th one, he was really good.
He really got it good.
Really
Yeah.
He was getting it right by then.
But the uniforms, when they went to make the movie, when they went to make Generations, they were supposed to switch over to the Deep Space Nine uniform.
They were?
And they were going to switch over to the Deep Space Nine, the red on the top and the black on the bottom. Which is it's the coat sort of one.
Oh,
so what they did was they were looking through with the budget of, okay, it's going to cost us this much. So they just measured Brent and Patrick for uniforms. That's it. So, if you watch the movie and you watch Frakes, he's wearing Avery Brooks's uniform, and LeVar is wearing Com Meaney's uniform, and Frakes has the sleeves rolled up because his arms are so much longer, and LeVar looks like he's swimming in the uniform because they wouldn't fucking just measure these other. There's 7 people in the cast. Measure them. Just make a uniform.
I never heard that. I love it.
I love how hard you were laughing at that story. That's amazing. That is amazing. It's that you get to that level and you're making a movie. They don't just go, maybe let's just make a handful of new uniforms. It's part of we will budget some wardrobe.
They're like, Data, Picard, you get uniforms. Everybody else, here's what you can pick from.
I mean, these are not intricate costumes. It's a jumpsuit.
No.
It's a fucking jumpsuit they're not paying for. That's ridiculous. I wonder if Shatner was able to keep anything from the original series. He must have. He's a boss.
Oh, the other thing about Shatner that's hilarious is he made them write the horse scene in with Patrick in Generations, and then he turned around and was like, "Okay, now you have to get these horses. You have to rent them from me."
Oh, is that true?
Yeah. I didn't know it. But you do know what we were wearing in that scene. You must have heard this.
No.
Oh, this is extraordinary. Bill, who is a horseman.
Oh, very much so.
I ride, and there is a huge world of difference between those two statements. And he said to me the day before, "Oh, Patrick, just a thought. I'll give you a little. I can't do his voice. I'm sure you could. But he said, we're going to be in the saddle for long periods tomorrow. It's quite a long scene, and there are going to be many takes and so forth. Can I make a suggestion? If you wear pantyhose underneath your trousers, you won't get blisters and rubbed raw by the store. So the next time you watch that scene." Just half close your eyes about the two captains actually wearing pantyhose underneath their Starfleet uniforms.
I'm so glad to hear that. By the way, I watched Green Room the other night, and it's really disturbing in a great way. It's it's a really fucked up, intimate, and it's just not something I've seen you do before. But you're great in it, and the movie's super messed up.
Yeah, it is. It scares me. I mean, I'm going to see it tonight, and my wife has agreed to come with me. Although when it was screened for us in London, 10 o'clock on a Monday morning, not the greatest time to be watching it.
Best time for a thriller at 10 a.m.
Yeah, me and Sonny, and my London agent. And who did sit through large bits of it with his head held in his hand like this, and occasionally he groaned. Oh, and it wasn't that he didn't think the movie was wonderful, because he did, but it was just upsetting him. My wife left. She said, "I'm sorry, I can't." Oh, wow. She never likes to know what it is I'm working on. She doesn't like to know the stories, or she doesn't want to hear necessarily anecdotes about the stories or see photographs and so forth. She likes to go, and it's all new,
all fresh. Yeah.
She left the screening room and walked around Soho for 10 minutes, and then came back in and sat down and watched another half an hour, and then said, "I'm really sorry. I can't take it."
I didn't know what the movie was about when I watched it, so it was great going into it. But it's the pitch of it is essentially. Do you want to tell people what the pitch is? It's like a band performs at a venue that's secluded, and then shit goes sideways.
A punk rock band, young people. They're on a tour over on the West Coast. They're DC based, and the tour has not gone well. They have no money. They're broke. They're siphoning petrol out of other people's cars in order to try to get back to DC. And then a friend of a friend says, "Hey, I think there's a gig you could do," and so they end up in this backwoods mountain music venue, and they've already been tipped off. It's sort of kind of skinheady and all of this, and they go, but they're going to be paid $350 in cash, and that's it. There's the petrol back, and so they do the gig. The audience is scary. It's all these crazy, shaved-headed guys with swastikas everywhere and skulls and things. And they're about to leave. The van is all packed up and they're ready to go. And then one of them realizes he's forgotten something in the green room. And he goes back, and nothing will ever be the same again.
It's Alicia Shawkat.
Alia Shawkat.
It's Alia Shawkat.
Anton Yelchin, Imogen Poots, Macon Blair, who was, of course, in Jeremy Saulnier's other movie, Blue Ruin, and was so brilliant in that.
What was the significance of the red laces?
The red laces.
When people see the movie, they'll know what it.
I do have a shoe with red laces, by the way. I was just checking to see if I was wearing them. The red laces denote members of this white supremacist brotherhood, of which my character is the head, the leader. That they are they belong to an inner group.
So it's just like a special,
It's a hierarchy.
elevated, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when I say at one point to my team, okay, and I want red laces only.
You want the elite.
I want the best guys and
the best of the worst
best
guys.
and the worst as well.
Yeah.
And, bad things happen, and it's very. I warn you, it's distressing.
What did you think when you first read the script?
I'll tell you what happened. I have told this several times, so this is not original, but I was at the time in my house in Oxfordshire, which is a little bit remote. It's kind of very, very private, no other houses around, deep in the bucolic English countryside. And this script came in an email, as they do these days, and my policy is, if I get a pretty good idea, this is not something I'm going to want to do or read all the way through, I just read it on my screen. I don't, because I believe in the environment and I'm saving paper. If it's something I think is going to be really interesting, I print. So I printed the script and sat down this evening alone in the house to read it. And about page 30, I closed the script and put it down, and I went all around my house, checking all the doors were locked, all the windows were locked. I put on the perimeter lights of the whole property. Mm-hmm. I put on the stay security program in my security system, and I poured a fucking huge glass of scotch. And I was only 35 pages into a 95-page script.
Oh, my God.
And then I went back and I finished the script. And the next night, a copy of Blue Ruin arrived, and it had exactly the same impact on me. So a combination of Jeremy's extraordinary writing and his directing, the way that he had directed Macon Blair in Blue Ruin, it was a no-brainer. So I picked up the phone and called him, and there we were.
But see, that's
I got it 5 days later. I got on a plane for Portland.
What's so great about it is that you don't have to do stuff like that. I mean, you're in these massive tentpole franchise movies, and you're on a series that's in the second season, and just the idea, like, I'm going to go do this small, low budge, intimate thriller, fucked up horror movie.
It's everything, and so many actors I know would agree with me that it's often right there where the deepest satisfactions come, where the most interesting experiences are had, when you're not surrounded by a multi-million-dollar megalith hit.
Sure.
Where you sometimes do feel, I really am just a little cog in this whole process. I feel that. Certainly not working with Bryan Singer when we were doing... what was that franchise called?
I think it was called X-Men.
It was called X-Men. That's right. There you go. I knew, actually, what it was called.
I know you.
It's called Marvel's Fox Property.
But the one they haven't gotten back yet.
Yep, that's true.
Well, the future, Charles.
So,
what kind of scotch does a Patrick Stewart pour for himself?
I mostly drink really good quality blended whiskey. Mm-hmm. In a way, single malt is a little bit wasted on me because I don't drink it neat. I usually drink it with just club soda and ice. And no lemon like you people.
No, we
like
don't. I don't.
Lemon in your
scotch.
I wanted to see how long you would grumble about the lemon in the scotch for like, these motherfuckers over here, they put their lemon in there. I mean, really, why would you? Bill Shatner was right.
Yeah. Whatever he said. I drink Chivas. And I had an 18-year-old Chivas.
Oh, nice.
Barely legal.
That was extraordinary. Yeah, so. And besides, when you ask for it, bartenders in the United States recognize the name. You ask for something like,
Lagavulin.
Crane La Barach.
Right.
And they'll go, you what? What? No, it's Chivas on the rocks. It's easy.
I mean, how do you fight the urge, the basic human urge to be comfortable? Like once you succeed and you're surrounded, you're not as hungry anymore. So how do you fight the urge to go, wow, I'm comfortable. I don't want to leave my nice house and just kind of say, like, how do you keep taking chances and keep pushing yourself and keep taking risks?
Because no matter how nice the house is or the environment, I'm always starving.
Like creatively?
Yeah, so the hunger doesn't go away. and curiosity. You know, this is going to be an exciting year for me because I have 3 pieces of work. That's all. Apart from the ongoing Family Guy and American Dad,
Sure.
which is just a wonderful little bit of trimming.
It's a nice bonus.
Seth MacFarlane dressing on my life, on my career. I have my second season of my series. I have a very big movie beginning in 2 weeks' time, and then I have 6 months on stage with the aforementioned Sir Ian.
Oh, that's fantastic. What's Can you say what the movie is or no?
No,
Damn it. What does it rhyme with?
sorry.
Rhymes with sorry.
I mean,
It rhymes with Bulverine.
I don't know what you mean. I would no. If I were to mention it or talk about it, when I got home in an hour or two, there would be somebody on the doorstep waiting for me.
Waiting for you.
Yeah, probably a process.
That would be you. That would be you waiting down there.
Yeah.
That's why you just put the perimeter lights on and put the stay security on, and then you're totally fine.
No,
it's totally
no.
fine. What are you doing with Ian?
We are reviving a production that we did on Broadway 2-3 years ago. We did a double bill. We did Waiting for Godot,
Right.
4 nights a week, and we did Harold Pinter's great masterpiece, a 4-night. Why do I keep calling it a 4-night come? That's nothing to do with Harold Pinter. No Man's Land is the play, and we did it on Broadway very successfully. And we promised ourselves, because it's a very, very not just an English play, it's a London play. And so many references in the script are to London. And if you don't know the references, there's a certain amount of pleasure you'll get out of it that you won't have. And it was a little like that on Broadway. Marvelous though the audiences were, and they enjoyed the play. But we promised ourselves, damn it, we must do this in London. So here we are on the threshold. We start rehearsing appropriately on the 4th of July, and we're doing a 5-week provincial tour followed by a 14-week season in London.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Is that 5 nights a week or just
8 performances a week?
8 performances?
6 nights a week, 2 matinee days.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
If
Your life changes. It's very different from now when my day begins at about 5:30 in the morning. Well, 4:30 in the morning, and then I get picked up at 5:30. And hopefully I'm home in the early evening, just in time to learn some more lines and go to bed.
Where's your brain week 7 of a 14-week run? Where you're like, okay, we've done this a million times. And
It's just a little trick, that's all. I'll give you an anecdote to illustrate the trick. I did a production of what I have always believed is the great American play, is Edward Albee's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which was filmed so spectacularly with Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. And when I did it, it's a long play. It's 4 acts, and they're huge. The play runs well over 3 hours, 3.5 hours. And there are only 4 characters in it, so there's a lot of talking. And the play begins with Martha and George, the people who own the property where the action takes place, arriving home after a dinner party. And then the play goes on for the rest of the night. And I asked the stage management, the carpentry shop, if they would put a practical lock on the door so that in order to begin the play, I had to put an actual key into an actual lock and turn it, open the door, and then Martha would say her first line, Jesus H. Christ, is the first line of the play. And we're underway. So standing behind the door, I did this with the brilliant, wonderful American actress Mercedes Rule. All that Mercedes and I knew as we stood behind that door and the house lights went down and some little music began and then the curtain went up was, all we have to do is to open this door. And we don't know anything else. Everything else is unknown for the next 3.5 hours. Am I making any sense?
Yeah. You're basically saying no, because it sounds like you're basically saying you learn everything and then you forget it, so it can be a fresh experience each time. And the actual tactile experience of turning a lock is the opening of this new thing.
Yeah.
See, that's how you keep it new every night.
Exactly. Because it has never happened before. Another little anecdote. When I was about 12, I was allowed to go to a theatre performance on my own at my local repertory theatre, professional, and I went to a matinee. And I saw this, and I was enchanted, thrilled. transported out of myself. I didn't like my life growing up very much. But sitting there and watching this other world on the stage, I was enchanted. I came out of the theatre, and they did a strange schedule. They did like 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock shows on a Saturday, and I'd seen the 5 o'clock show. There was a queue of people queuing to go in, and I didn't understand what they were going to see because I'd just seen it. And this is naive, I know, and I was a child. I could not get my head around that what I had just seen could possibly be repeated.
Again, yeah.
Wow.
And so I think of that a lot when I'm doing runs. So, my first line in the play I'm doing with Sir Ian in later in the year is, "As it is the first thing I say, because I'm pouring drinks. As it is, and he says, "Oh yes, as it is," and then I say, "Cheers," and then he talks for a long time. And, it's again the same thing. I've got a glass in my hand, and we get standby, curtain going up, and all I know I have to do is pour a drink and nothing else. Does it sound fucked up, that?
No, it actually, it kind of makes it seem, I can understand why it would be fun every night when you're recreating this over and over.
Before.
It's never happened before each time.
And Ian believes in the same philosophy very strongly. So it means that, whereas we were in Waiting for Godot, when the two of us never left the stage for the whole 2.5 hours, that we can trust the other actor to also be hopefully living in the moment. In Ian's case, not hopefully, he is. And that everything is spontaneous and happening as if for the first time. And that's how you get an audience. Because audiences know they can't articulate it. They don't know how to describe it. But because I've had it in the theatre, I'm sure you all have. You're sitting there and you begin to believe that actually you're looking through a peephole into somebody's life or room, and it's really happening. That's why people sometimes get very upset in the theatre, because it seems to be so truthful. And there are times you watch some plays. I remember when I saw the great production of August Osage County that came down from Chicago to Broadway and then to London. I actually had to leave at the intermission of a production and a performance I was thrilled by, because it was too real and it reflected aspects of my home life and my childhood that were just making me so unhappy. Wow. I couldn't take it. And because this is the way those actors worked. There was everything about them that this has never happened before. You're hearing this for the first time. And somehow you felt, I shouldn't be watching this. This is too private for me to be an observer.
It is. It's really, and it's also very fascinating to hear that it sounds like whatever was making you unhappy as a child, then you kind of went into theater to escape all that, and then that moment was the very thing that was then taking you back to that to that point.
Yeah, it's curious, isn't it?
Did you ever, in a grand scheme, did you ever get away from it? Did you ever get away from all the stuff that made you unhappy?
No, I made use of it. Thanks to, after I came to California, a lot of quite expensive but absolutely blue ribbon therapy.
Oh, good.
Oh, seriously.
Good.
That's what I did. And all this stuff was, for several years, gone over and over and over and over. And it gets worked out. And you can face it, and you can talk about it. And we hear this a lot, especially now. I work a lot with an English organization that deals with domestic violence, because that was part of my life. Mm-hmm. And makes me very proud to be associated with the charity is called Refuge, and they do brilliant work in the United Kingdom. I, for instance, could not play rage, anger, fury, not even good at violence. I faked it for years and years and years, faked it very well, but I was faking it because I was afraid to tap into anything that might have, just sort of turned me upside down again. And then with a lot of help and one wonderful director who said, it's time you let go of this, and you can. And if you were prepared to, I was playing a wife and child murderer in a Shakespeare play. He said, I know what's there, and if you will tap into it, I swear to God, I will never leave your side. I will be here to hold your hand if you're prepared to go for it, which was a wonderful thing for a director to say. And again, with counseling and therapy, it all became... We have a phrase we use, certainly in the theatre. It's well, I say we use, maybe it's just one that I use. We have a memory bank. And the longer you live, that bank account gets bigger and bigger and bigger, richer and richer and richer. And nothing is ever wasted on an actor. Nothing. And sometimes I feel uncomfortable about it, no matter what the experience you're involved in, no matter... And actually, I heard somebody talk about this in connection with the Paris bombings in November, that while it's happening, you are saying to yourself, do not forget this. Remember what it feels like. Remember what you saw. Remember what you heard. Keep these sounds fresh and vivid in your memory. Don't try to erase them, because they're going to be really valuable later on. So it makes life kind of interesting.
Well, it's good. I think it's good for people to hear I think it's important for people to hear who are going through it, to hear, oh, this is something that Patrick Stewart went through, and he was able to deal with it, and he was able to use it, and even he struggled with it for a long time. So I think that's really important, because I think most people kind of have that thing where they go, well, everyone else has shit figured out except for me, but the ultimate truth is that no one has shit figured out. It's very interesting, because of the work I do for Refuge, and things that I've written, and like now, like here with you talking about this, someone will come up to me. It happened, I went to hear, Joel Grey has written a really lovely autobiography, and he did a reading from it a couple of Sundays ago, and afterwards a woman came over to me and said how much she enjoyed my work and Star Trek and so forth, and then I knew exactly where she was going to go, because her eyes began to water. And she said, and your work with domestic violence. And I said, it's a problem for you. And she nodded her head. And encounters like that are, we're actors, we're shallow people, we're egocentric, we are full of ourselves, we don't give a shit about anybody else. But when you get moments like that, when someone says, it helps what you've said and done, is fantastic. So it gives celebrity or notoriety, whatever seems appropriate, another color. I think the other kind of reward that comes from it is that I assume you sort of feel like, if someone else can benefit from what I went through, then it wasn't a waste of, it helped someone else go through it. And in my case, it had two stages, because I knew my mother was suffering, and I knew I could not do much to help her. So what I do now, I do from the woman I couldn't help. Of course. When I was 6, 7, 8. And my father's had a pretty bad press, all in all, about all of this. Naturally, he has. He was the one who was committing the violence. But then 2 years ago, when I did Who Do You Think You Are?, to my astonishment and completely unexpected, the subject of the hour-long television program was my father. Oh. So I discovered things about him I didn't know. And one of the things I discovered was that in 1941, he returned on the last boat out of Cherbourg, part of the British Expeditionary Force that had gone into Europe to fight the Nazis. And then we were pushed out, Dunkirk, and there wasn't... People all know Dunkirk, but there were other places too where Allied troops were on the beaches and trying to get back to England. And they showed me live on camera a newspaper clipping which said, Sergeant Alfred Stewart has returned home to Murfield severely shell-shocked. Oh, wow. None of us knew. I swear to God, none of us knew. Not my two older brothers, not my mother. Nobody had said that. And certainly nobody would have mentioned PTSD. And all they would have said was, come on, act like a man, pull yourself together. Sure. And then when this particular part of Dad's military service, I stood on spots in northern France where the war historian, his regiment historian said,
your father must have stood right on this spot at this moment, and here's what was happening. The train, they were going into Abbeville. The train had been stopped because the Nazis, that were supposed to be 50 miles away, were already in the town, and they were strafing and bombing the railway lines. And your father's train stopped here because we know there was a bridge there, and your father, he was part of the military police then, one of his job would have been to get everybody out of the train and into the long grass, into the woods, anywhere, the riverbanks where they could be safe. And they said your father would have been in charge of that. And the things he would have seen in those days surrounding that would have been appalling, because the Nazis, they made a particular, this was intimidation. They would strafe with their fighter planes and shell roads filled with refugees trying to get away from the fighting. But they would chase them there and they would gun them down, and my father would have seen all of that. And no one should have to see stuff like that, but nobody ever helped him. There was no...
He didn't know to ask for help.
No, he didn't. And it was embarrassing and shaming to have to admit to it. You didn't, because you weren't a man if you'd been so shocked and frightened as he must have been. And when I talked to specialists in this and talked about my experience of him, he said, archetypal behavior. There's absolutely no question. Your father had severe PTSD. Everything you tell me, the weekend alcoholism, the violence, the mood swings, and so forth. So now I do the refuge work for my mother, and there's an organization called Combat Stress. And I do that for my father.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. And I think it's amazing that you can talk about it, and I think it's amazing that you're still doing the work. And even though at the time you didn't have the knowledge and you didn't know about the therapy, you didn't know how to help, already you must have helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I mean, it's an incredible gift. It's an incredible gift.
It's I feel very grateful.
I adore you. You are such a wonderful man.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, the fact that you're okay talking about Star Trek stuff and you're letting us nerd out about every script and everything. You talk about that. You've opened up about your family. I mean, you're such a great human being, and I really hope you continue to come back on the podcast as things come up for you.
Anytime.
I adore you.
Thank you.
And you know, when I was
we're going to put you on record as saying anytime.
Okay. No, listen, we have witnesses.
And Will just says the most wonderful things about you.
Really?
Yeah.
He and I had a very unusual and interesting relationship because he was the kid on the show.
Yeah.
Although, actually, I hated his guts because when Next Generation was announced, the Los Angeles Times admitted there were only two actors anybody had ever heard of in the show, LeVar Burton and Will Wheaton.
No one had seen Dune?
I guess not. Though I had more to do in Dune in the director's cut than I did. Thank you very much, David Lynch.
When you were making Dune, were you like, well, this is going to be like bigger than Star Wars? I mean, this is Dune. This is huge.
I kind of did, and sort of hoped because... And indeed, there was a hope by the filmmakers that it would be the first step of a franchise. Because I think there were 4 books. You would know,
yes.
wouldn't you?
Yeah.
There were 4 Dune books, and we only made the first one. And I'm not sure we made the whole of the first one. No. And Gurney Halleck was a recurring character, so... but then if I'd done that, maybe I wouldn't have done X-Men.
You wouldn't have. You can never look back and go, oh, whatever. Like it worked out the way it worked out. Everything's worked out great. What were you saying about Will? You had a because I was friends with Will in those days. He was a little. We were both moody teenagers.
Yeah.
You know, we were both moody teenagers. But he's always spoken very highly of you.
Well, the feeling is mutual, and we did a couple of shows where we were thrown together for long periods of time. We had, didn't we crash land on a planet?
Yep. Season 5.
And we were...
He does that all the time.
Oh, man. And we were in a cave,
Yep.
and I was badly hurt, and he was looking after me.
Gave you a tourniquet and a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
The uniform that they paid so much money for.
And we were somewhere in the desert outside Bakersfield, I think. I can't remember. Sorry if that, just kind
No,
of
you're on a planet.
undermines
You're on an alien planet.
Yeah, it was the
Patrick.
alien planet called
Continue.
Bakersfield. Yeah. Green Room rolls out April 15th, and I absolutely encourage people to see it, not just because it's super fucked up and it's a really great thriller horror movie, but it's just you in this role is different than anything I've ever seen you in before. It's really great.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for being here.
Hang on, nerds. I know it was season 4, end of season 4. God. I don't want them to tweet at me.
Yeah, your life.
They're
will
going
become
to anyway because they
Yeah,
stopped
they
the
stopped
podcast
it
at that
to
point
tweet
and tell
at
you to
me.
fuck yourself, and then they're going to come back in and go, "Oh, I listened to the rest. I'm sorry, you did put in the correction.
oh, boy.
Still fuck you for messing it up the first
I get
time."
It. I get it.
I will speak up for you.
In front of
Thank you,
Patrick
Thank you.
Stewart. Matt actually invented an escape code for the Enterprise called Alpha 39. If you're ever in a conversation where someone has cornered you about the specifics of a particular Star Trek episode, you just go Alpha 39, hit your communicator, and they immediately beam you out of
Back
any
to your
situation.
quarters.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anytime, if you walk in on an awkward situation, like
Yeah.
Frakes is getting handsy with a lieutenant, then you just
Alpha
go
39.
Alpha 39.
Yeah.
Get yourself out of there.
Yeah, then you're out of here.
Love that. Well, I don't need to use that here.
No,
because I don't
thank
want
you.
to get out of here, but I'm afraid
You must go. There are other
clock
things
is
that are
ticking.
very busy. Thank you so much. Enjoy your burrito, everyone. And as I said, I adore you, Sir.
And by
Patrick
the way,
Stewart.
thank you very much. I should also add, the movie opens in New York and Los Angeles this Friday. It opens nationwide 1 week later. So
Okay.
that will be with the 19th or the 20th.
The
or something
22nd,
like that.
probably.
I don't want people thinking, where is it? It's not coming to my cinema.
29th nationwide.
I'm sorry, Americans don't really speak like that.
We do speak like that.
some do.
That's okay. I think the whole time I've been like, hello, I'm a British person. You must be like, okay, fuck this guy. So you please, I appreciate your any impersonation of an American accent.
Okay. Well, next time I'll come back with a lot of them.
Please.
Great. Can't
Hey,
wait.
maybe you should. Maybe we end the podcast saying "Enjoy your burrito." Maybe you should say that in your favorite American accent.
Enjoy your burrito.
Yes.
Eh.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah. You should just enjoy your burrito. Yeah, buddy. Yeah.
Oh, well, the old prospector just came in.
Now leaving Nerdist.com. Enjoy your burrito.